to reduce New York City crime, and it has been a tremendously effective tool and a great success. It was designed to place resources where needed and to track the results of crime reduction measures to measure the effectiveness of the actions taken. The Department of Sanitation and Buildings, Department of Buildings, presently report their metrics on the city websites based on the number of summonses issued rather than the number of violations or conditions corrected or remediated. As such, these departments are highly effective at issuing summonses, but pretty bad at generating corrective results. The question is, would you sponsor legislation or administrative action to implement effectiveness measure metrics that measure the correction or remediation of violations issued by city agencies? And this would include the Department of Buildings, HPD, Sanitation, Health, and Consumer Affairs.
The answer to that question is yes, absolutely. And I have sponsored legislation such as one that would hold the Department of Homeless more accountable. When we talk about property violations, some of the worst offenders in the city are those that own so-called cluster apartment sites. And these sites are housing our homeless, our most vulnerable. If you remember last December, there was a situation where a radiator exploded and 2 kids were killed. And there were outstanding violations on that building and many, many more. In fact, as we speak and sit here tonight, there are over 14,000 outstanding violations on these cluster apartments. I put a bill in, and more of my colleagues are signing on to this bill, to put an inspector general in place, to have oversight on the Department of Homeless, to make sure that when we're going into contract with providers, that we're also going into a contract with property owners. We need to hold these property owners accountable. And thirdly, those bills that I have introduced would also triple the penalties for those life safety violations that we're talking about here tonight in those buildings that are not safe. And that this city and the administration under Mayor de Blasio has taken a blind eye to. We need to do more, and that's one example of how I've been working with my colleagues to put greater enforcement in city government to hold these bad actors accountable. Thank you.
They're not being held accountable, and as a civic leader, and we tell people to report sanitation violations, we tell them to report DOB violations. DOB visits the location twice, and the thing is closed. The case is closed. Nobody's reporting. Was there any action? Even when they ticket the person, they don't even really follow through to make sure the fine has been paid. They just leave it, and they might put a lien on it, but nothing happens. We can't have that. We have to have accountability. And just like the NYPD has to report back, all the city agencies should. So we're at a point here where they're not held accountable, and it goes into thin air, these complaints. So that is that's a great question, and I think anybody, that comes from people who are in civics, who've experienced this, that when you report, I report to sanitation, a house that's so bad, and let's say I go around there, but I did like 20 houses, I think, before the summer, and we went, and I photographed them, and I get back to sanitation, no fine warranted, and the place is an absolute mess. So I sent it in to sanitation. I said, are you kidding? Look at this location. And then when I send them photographs, they start circling the wagons. Uh-oh, let's see, if Bob Holden complains, make sure that there's something, that they follow through on that. That's what I got from some supervisors, that if Bob Holden puts his name on it. So I stopped putting my name on it, and then they still were doing the same thing. So we need greater accountability to these city agencies. It's a great question. I would certainly do that and fight for that, because I'm on the front lines of civics, and I've experienced that.
The next question in category is question number 10. Category is MTA property maintenance. Although this has been touched on before, this is a fairly serious question. The MTA does not put much effort into maintaining or policing their dedicated parking areas under the M train, especially at the access points on 60th Street and 60th Lane. Garbage is dumped daily, not to mention the piles of uncollected dog feces. Because of the parking problems in Ridgewood, people illegally park their cars in front of the locked, non-access gates. What can you do to address the garbage, dog feces, and parking problems at these locations now?
We have the technology. Thing called cameras, very easy to put up. MTA, make MTA do it first. If they won't, then we get the city council to install cameras to stop the dumping. And I passed there a number of times. I can't believe the dumping that's going on in that location, and it keeps going on, and nothing is happening. And that's been, 8.5 years under the city council, current city council person, and I would have fixed that immediately. And again, cameras are the answer. You can get their plates. The police have that technology too, by the way. They know where the cars are traveling. They have the plate readers. That's all you need. It's a start. Then, of course, you can maybe get the Doe Fund program to expand into that area. I've worked with the MTA chairman, Joe Loda, on a number of things, and saving a mural at my college when he was on the community board of trustees, and he helped me with that. But I recently reported some overgrown vegetation blocking the M shuttle bus near Forest Avenue, and it was corrected by his office. So I will work with the MTA. I could reach out to the MTA. I know Joe Loda, and Joe Loda is a good man. He's a great man for the job, and he will respond, and we'll get that area cleaned up. That's a guarantee.
I know Joe Loda too, and we have a good working relationship, and I know the man that appointed him, our good governor, Andrew Cuomo, has endorsed my candidacy. Now, sanitation, not only under this right-of-way of the Amtrak, but throughout the district that I represent, has always been a problem, long-standing problem, but we've been working together with the Ridgewood property owners and other civics throughout the district to address that. In this budget, I was able to allocate over $200,000, and that's nothing new. Over the past couple of years, worked with my colleagues to build a clean initiative where we don't need to call the MTA to clean a problem. I'm able to call the Department of Sanitation because of the extra funding that our community has to fix this problem. You probably noticed Fresh Pond Road and Myrtle Avenue, Grand Avenue, or Metropolitan Avenue is a lot cleaner today than a few years ago. And that has everything to do with the partnership with the Department of Sanitation. They're cleaning sidewalks 4 days a week, manually. The sidewalks, now not just the streets, but the sidewalks in front of businesses too. And they've done extra garbage pickup. 5 days a week for Fresh Pond Road and 7 days a week for Myrtle Avenue. But we can't stop there. I need you to be my eyes and ears too. Please call me when somebody's illegally dumping. Take pictures if you see somebody. If you see license plates, we will hold those offenders accountable. We will also let the sanitation police know about this, and they could watch the area and ticket themselves and catch people who are doing it while they're doing it. And that's why I'm proud of the relationship that I have with the Department of Sanitation. Our sanitation officers union has also endorsed my candidacy for re-election. Thank you.
Question number 11, its category on the sheet is sanitation, but it really has to do with alternate side of the street parking. About 25 years ago, the RPOCA followed a sanitation department initiative. It was an experiment in Jackson Heights to make alternate side of the street parking more efficient by mounting a camera on the front of the street sweeper that would capture the license plate, make and model and color of the cars, and mail summonses were then sent out to the owners of those registered vehicles if they didn't move them in time. The plan was also designed to permit car owners to be able to more efficiently and more quickly repark their cars after the street sweeper had passed through their neighborhood without risking fear of getting ticketed the second time. Today's technology does exist similar to what's used for red light violators to implement such a system. Would you be willing to advocate for a 3-month test pilot street sweeping program that could implement the latest technology for this purpose.
Yes.
Mr. Holden?
Okay, well, I remember that program that Paul was, had on the community board, and he was showing us photographs, and that I wouldn't even go with experimental program. I would do it because it worked. And that should, if you're parked illegally and you're stopping the street sweeper from doing their job, you should be ticketed on the spot, or should you see it mailed to you. Certainly it would come in the mail. They're doing that for red lights and doing that for speeders. Certainly you should do it for sanitation. But there's another thing. Park Slope in Williamsburg, and I want to bring this up, has 2-day-a-week alternate side. Why doesn't Ridgewood have that? Why do we have 4 days in most areas? Why not 2-day? Make it easier for us. I mean, I think if it's good enough for Park Slope in Williamsburg, certainly Ridgewood car owners deserve a break. And the manpower you save on that, you can put the sanitation workers cleaning the streets of Ridgewood, making it a much cleaner location. So I think it's a win-win. The cameras are a great idea. It should be implemented. No more experiments. We did it. It worked. Paul loved it. That should happen, and I will fight for that. And that's a no-brainer. I just don't get why the sanitation didn't implement that. The technology is certainly there. Thank you.
Okay. That's the end of the official questions that both candidates have in front of them. And there have been other questions, but this ends in 12 minutes. The reason being that Mr. Holden has 42 other meetings tonight that he must run to, and he's using a hoverboard to do it.
Elizabeth too.
Some of these questions I love, and I'll give it to you so you know that we at least paid attention, even if we don't answer. This is a great one. Why turn down liquor licenses in Ridgewood? It always used to have a bar on every corner. For the Germans. Keep historical character. Jawohl. What do you do? What do you intend to do to solve? Not either one of you.
Okay.
Do you want this one? What will you propose to solve our growing homeless problem for 105,000 children? Do you have either one of you want
to answer? Would you like me to answer both of those questions, or?
Do you really want to talk about German bars?
No, but
okay,
just to touch a base about liquor license. It's a case-by-case basis that we should look at whether the community and working with the community board, whether it would be a good idea for that location. Now, homelessness is a huge crisis our city is facing. There are 59,500 people who are homeless tonight, and many of which are families with young children. The numbers have gone down slightly. If we look at the exact same time last year in the summer, this is the height of the problem, right where families are going homeless before the school starts. So at least I believe the measure that we put in place in the council that allows for free legal counsel to keep people in their homes will help, but it's not going far enough. We need to build real affordable housing, and it has to be affordable. And the mayor, thank God he has come to his senses and said we're no longer going to house people in hotels. Because he took a bad situation that I mentioned earlier about those cluster sites where there's outstanding violations and they're really not safe. However, they're apartments. If they were fixed, they would be safe, and certainly better than hotels. I sued the mayor last year because he was breaking the law, and he changed his plan. And we need to work together as a community to make sure situations such as we have here in Ridgewood, where the church here has pitched in and has put a plan together that would serve a very small amount of homeless people from our community. Putting proposals like that together, helping our most neediest New Yorkers, makes the most sense. Thank you.
I have a definite plan to deal with the homeless situation because I was on the front lines of the protest that warehousing the homeless in large hotels, is not the answer, and it's not really great for the neighborhood either. So you don't have that. You can't have this large concentration of people who have so many problems, and mental illness is a big problem in many of them. But also, they're especially the families. The mayor proposed an advisory board, but only for siting on the homeless situation. I'm going a step further. In this area, I think we have 200, between whatever DHS tells us at a particular time, 260 and 285 homeless. We can handle that with our faith-based organizations. I went to St. Matthias. I know my opponent just visited after the soup kitchen after 8.5 years in office, first time. I would certainly fund that to St. Matthias. I would fund all the other faith-based organizations that are willing to take homeless in a smaller, they have a lot of rooms, they have convents that are empty, they have a lot of space, and it could just be here and there, a few families, and if you spread that around the neighborhoods, who would object to that here? Who would object? We put an advisory board together of the good minds. I could certainly help, if I don't get to be a council person, I will help to help resume writing. I help my students. We can break the cycle of homelessness that we see from generation to generation. We could put together a 50-person panel or more and get the best and the brightest to solve the homeless for our homeless, not the Bronx or our homeless within District 30, and that is doable. And I have a comprehensive plan that I'd like to implement once I'm elected. Thank you.
As you both may be aware, the city is looking to close down Rikers Island, and the question expresses concern about bringing back the dislocated occupants of Rikers Island to the local communities, including our neighborhoods. What is your position on the closure of Rikers Island and where they will be relocated in the Ridgewood area?
Well, that's a good question for me. I certainly want to keep the prisoners where they are. It's 400 acres land, and you want the guy that escaped. He couldn't get off the island. You can't swim that. But the real estate developers want it. They want it, and by the way, the mayor wants to reduce the population from 10,000, roughly 10,000, to 5,000. And the Queens DA says that's ridiculous because many people on the street are bad. If you take 5,000 prisoners and put them in the neighborhoods, we're in trouble. But also, my opponent wants to close Rikers, and the mayor said we're going to have community jails because we need to have the prisoners closer to their homes. Well, we don't have many, I don't think, criminals in this district. And I certainly don't want community jails. And she wants to propose at the Queens House of Detention or the Kew Gardens. She's shoving it on Kew Gardens, but that can only house maybe a tenth of what we need. So you're gonna have to build that bigger or make it bigger, which they can't. And they're gonna have to put smaller jails. So bad enough. And the mayor is shoving homeless shelters on us. Now we're gonna get jails. Do you really want that next 4 years? No. Keep it open. Keep Rikers open. If you want to rebuild Rikers, you got so much space on Rikers to rebuild. So there's no reason other than developers giving her money to tell her, yeah do this because we can develop high-rise apartments over there and further overdevelop our city.
First, a lot of things that Mr. Holden has said tonight are simply not true. Spreading rumors about me that I want to open a jail in your backyard. Let me tell you how I feel about Rikers Island. Do I believe it needs to be closed? Yes. Am I alone? Absolutely not. The federal government, the state, and the city all agree on something for once. Let me finish, please. If a community jail was to come in our community, I would have to approve it. It would have to go through a land use process.
Like the homeless, yeah, like the shelter.
The council
Like
member.
the shelters, you gotta prove that.
Ladies and gentlemen, please.
Please let the candidates answer.
So, Rikers Island is plagued with violence. That's not new, but it has gotten worse. And this mayor and administration has given more and more money to Rikers Island to try to fix a problem that is completely out of control. Let's talk about the population, because my opponent really doesn't know what he's talking about. It's not a prison. The vast majority of inmates are considered detainees. They haven't been convicted of a crime. And only 13% wind up going to upstate prison. 87% come right back into your community. Do you want to make sure they get corrected and become better law-abiding citizens? Or do you want them to become better criminals? We need to fix that. We have a moral obligation, and lastly, because my time is running out, the costs are out of control. We are transporting over 10% of our jail population to the courthouses every single day. That's dangerous. We're moving them when they can move through secure tunnels from the jail, the detention center next to the courthouse. That's what I support. Not a jail in your backyard, but one near the courthouse where they have to go to see the judge. Thank you.
Judges don't want to
Can I just rebut that for a second?
Yeah, but this forum is supposed to be informative, but not a raucous
Right.
event. So everyone wants to hear what each candidate has to
Yeah.
say and make a decision on who they support.
This is a, can I just rebut, go back and forth on this issue, because this is a big issue. Can I-
Folks, just time out. Sometimes, the words and the messaging aren't always 100% as clear as we'd like it to be. This is not a debate. We did not structure it that way. If we did, we'd have a lot more back and forth and tit for tat. This is a structured forum for questions because we actually want to hear what the candidates have to say on issues of concern to the neighborhood. And to the extent I know in any political campaign, there's stuff that goes on in both campaigns. We want to hear what the candidates think. I'd rather not hear about what one candidate believes another candidate may or may not be doing. If we can stick to the policies and the questions so we know where you stand on the issues, that's really the benefit of this structured forum. Now, we have 7:59. We do have a few more questions from the audience. I'm asking the candidates, do you have a few extra minutes, or what's your timing look like?
I have two other things to go through.
So I guess at this point, Charles, we could wrap up.
Unless you think one of those questions absolutely hasn't been covered. I think
No.
they've been covered,
They're
so.
redundant.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, everyone.